Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and anybody that's coming to visit this afternoon's People for Public Services meeting. As you know, this forum has been going for almost 2 years, and I think this is the second live over Teams that we've done such forum. We're in for an interesting afternoon, and I will hand over to Amanda for the next stage.
Hi everyone. So the People for Public Services are a group of citizens that came together to help formalise a way of gathering citizens' voices on all issues in terms of adult social care in Birmingham. There's a few pictures of the group, as you can see on the screen now, alongside, we've gone forward, alongside one of our councillors, Mary. So this is some pictures of the team. Got lovely Lisa in the middle and some other people who are involved in facilitating and making these forums happen, People for Public Services Forum. So why are we using this virtual forum? It's become apparent that we can't meet up in rooms as we used to do. So this is a way that we have found that means that we can come together to still produce the People for Public Service forums, and the subject changes from month to month. It is bringing new challenges. We are very aware that some people are removed from this way of working and can't access these sort of events. We're very aware of that. On the flip side, we're also aware that it has included some people who previously were not able to be included. We're always open to your feedback on these events, and there'll be links where you can do that at the end of this one. We're always looking to make improvements, so please do give us your feedback. Just a little bit about this event. On your screen, you will see there's a Q&A button. Oh, my camera's gone off. Okay, my camera's come back on. There's a Q&A button that you can use to ask questions throughout the event. And the event is called Our Future City Plan from the planning team. So we'd love you to feel free to ask questions, as people are already doing in the chat function, and we will read these and try to address these as we go through. Anything that we can't answer during this event, we will take away and come back to you. So please do ask your questions and continue to give us some feedback and comments as we go through. I think that's all from me. So handing over to Our Future City Plan team, over to you.
Thanks, Amanda. Hello, everyone. I'm Gary Woodward. I'm the Development Planning Manager in the City Centre team for the City Council. And we're a team of planners and designers, and we are hoping to have your views and your comments on the future of our city centre. And it's not just our city centre we're looking at, it's a much wider area of central Birmingham. And we want to know how you use those areas, and we want to get you really involved in shaping our future. It's a really exciting time for us to be looking ahead. So we want to gather all your thoughts and ideas and work with as many people as possible to develop the ideas for the future. So we've called it Our Future City Plan. It replaces, or it will replace, the Big City Plan, which some of you may have heard of, and that was very much focused on a small part of the city, but we're looking a bit wider with this piece of work. And it's the start of a process. We've got no firm ideas or fixed views yet. This is very much open to everybody to get involved with. So if you'd like to move on to the next slide, we've got a little introduction film for you here that sets the scene.
As a city, Birmingham has always embraced change. We are a city with a wealth of knowledge, skills and creative potential across our communities. Over the last 30 years, our city has undergone a transformation, attracting unprecedented levels of investment and development, providing jobs, opportunities, homes, and environmental improvements. At the same time, we're currently facing a number of significant challenges. Using the climate emergency as impetus, we need to set a new direction for our city. Our future city plan is our template for major change. We need to aim for a zero carbon approach to development, build inclusive growth into the very foundation of our plans, and work alongside individuals, businesses, and charities to ensure everyone can contribute to a fresh vision and strategy for the future. The Shaping Our City Together document marks the start of this conversation, setting out an inspiring vision and strategy for central Birmingham, one that creates a fair, inclusive, and green place to benefit all. Your feedback received at this stage will inform the draft Our Future City Plan Central Birmingham Framework 2040. Taking the spirit of the artist and engineer from our city's coat of arms, we will move forward together. Please help us to shape this plan. Birmingham's future success relies on you.
Okay, so there's a lot in that little film there, and I'm going to go through some of those themes and ideas as part of this presentation. So what do we want from this document? We've called it Shaping Our City Together because that's really what it's about. We want to create a vibrant city with a mix of things that are happening in the city. How are we going to use our shops and offices in the future? What about the leisure and visitors that come to Birmingham, and also the community that live here? How do the community use our central areas? How will that change over the coming years? What do people really want from the city centre and the central areas of our city? What do you use it for? And we want to make sure that everybody has a chance to be to have success in our city as well, to have access to the right jobs and to have high quality and affordable homes and a range of homes for people to live in and to form communities. So the whole purpose of this document is to really start that conversation about central Birmingham and about its future and what it will look like, how it will work, and how we will develop it and change things over the next 20 years. So there's a long way to go, but it starts here. And we really want to get you involved because we are a city of great opportunity and energy. And it's that energy that we get from meetings and from speaking to people and the emails and messages we get all the time, and the organisations we already work with, that's helped us to shape some of this document so far. And we want you to get involved even more. So what is central Birmingham? Well, I've just referred to the city centre. Most people might think of that as being the Bullring or perhaps Victoria Square or Brindley Place. And that's sort of the traditional city centre as people think of it. And all of our planning over recent years has very focused within the area within the Ring Road. So places like Digbeth and West Side, Broad Street and so on, and the Jewellery Quarter, those have perhaps had quite a lot of attention over the past 20 or 30 years. And a lot has changed there and a lot has developed, and it's still continuing to change, and we still need to look at that area. But what what we're being told by lots of people is that a lot of people quite often feel that they're not part of that, and we want people that are perhaps living on the around the city centre area in central Birmingham, in those inner city areas, to feel that it's their city centre as well, and also for those areas to benefit from the change and the growth that can come about. So what we're doing with this plan is to think about central Birmingham as a much wider area of different neighbourhoods and quarters that goes beyond that Ring Road, and looks at places like Borsall Heath and Highgate and parts of Edgbaston and Ladywood and parts of Soho, Newtown and Nechells. So all those areas that are on the doorstep of that central area are those areas that we're focusing on with this particular piece of work. And as I said, it will replace the big city plan that was very, very much focused on that very tight, small city centre. This is looking broader than that. So I'll stop for a moment and hand over to Amanda.
Okay, so Gary and Tim, Tim's asked, is there any explanation for the slower and worse public transport journey with so many bus passengers coming from West Brom, Dudley and Sandwell into Cornwall Road via Hagley Road? Question mark. Permanent diversion and no buses in the 5 ways underpass. And priority is always given to trams. That's one question. I don't know whether you wanted to come into that and answer that one, Gary.
Okay, yeah, just as I was on mute. Yeah, thank you. Obviously a lot of changes taking place at the moment on the Broad Street corridor while the tram is built. So there have been a lot of diversions, and when the tram line reopens, and some of those bus routes will also share those routes. So hopefully that will start to free up some of those snags and jams that have been taking place, and that's certainly something we could feed back to West Midlands, Transport for West Midlands, who operate or look after the operation of the buses through National Express and the tram and so on. So we'll feed back those detailed comments on that. But that whole issue around speed of public transport and having that option is something that we do want to cover through this piece of work, so that people do have the option to have access to efficient and fast public transport, buses and trams. So thank you for that comment.
Yeah, and just to add to that, clearly over the 20-year period that we're talking about, I think the dominance of the car will start to diminish. So there will be more priority to the public transport routes, the bus routes, the sort of sprint. And of course, Transport for West Midlands will be looking at their strategy, and that will align with what we are doing. But it is something that is important, that public transport will certainly be a priority for getting into the city over the next 20 years.
There's a question. Tim said a question as well about compensation for public transport. So I've had a regional fare-free public transport for 13 years. Why not anyone? It's compensation for slightly higher risk of getting COVID as a reward for leaving the car at home to slow the climate emergency crisis. And just to go on to, Tim's also mentioned zero carbon. I thought means less carbon intensive cement concrete. Is that right? Question mark. Should that mean the end to constant demolition and rebuilding? He said finish Brum and then leave it finished. There's a couple more questions. I don't know if you want to make a comment back to those, Tim or Gary.
Yeah, on the transport passes, again, that's something that Transport for West Midlands, it's within their sort of authority to look at the detail of that, so we'll pass that comment on to them, but it is something about access to public transport that we do want to promote and highlight within this piece of work, so it is an important point, definitely. And yeah, the point about demolition and rebuilding, all development has some kind of carbon emissions associated with it, and in terms of looking at the heritage of our city and reuse of the buildings, I think that's a good point about how we don't necessarily always have to demolish something and start it again, but sometimes that's the right thing to do if it's a building that's kind of gone past its life, and it would actually be more difficult to properly insulate it or whatever. Then there are different options, but yeah, I think looking at our buildings and how we reuse them better and more is definitely part of our future, I think. So that's a really good point.
There's quite a lot of other questions coming through. Someone's mentioned that in the presentation so far, there's no wheelchair user in sight to be noticed. David has said there are very few flats or houses being built in the city centre that are affordable. Flats Broad Street is selling for up to £300,000 for 1-bedroom flat. How are you going to provide housing both rented and for sale for the ordinary person? It's easy to say this in words, but how will you achieve this?
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's a good point. We do. Obviously, there needs to be there is a range of housing across, for to meet different needs, and we're well aware that the amount of affordable housing isn't meeting our citizens' needs. So we do need to look at those areas of the city where we can improve the amount of affordable housing, and also we have very clear planning policy in place that says that when the building is a bigger development comes forward, that a certain percentage of those should be affordable, or they should provide funding towards affordable housing. So it's about looking again at those policies and making sure that we do test each development around their viability and affordability, and there are a number of ways in which we need to do this. And thank you for that comment, because it's one that's coming through very strongly, and we do take it very seriously, and we are looking for other solutions to that as well.
Just to add to that as well, and conscious of time, that we work closely with Birmingham Housing Trust, so we will look at our own housing, and we'll ensure that within all areas of central Birmingham that we do have the appropriate sort of tenure and the type of housing. And it's of course about ensuring that all these houses have access to the open space and the appropriate sort of public realm.
And you can see lots of comments coming up, so I don't know if we want to move on with the presentation a little, so that we can perhaps answer some of the questions as we go along. But I want to reassure everybody, because there's some fantastic questions popping up, that we hopefully we'll be able to record all of these, and if we can't answer them today, we'll definitely be taking them on board as part of our feedback, and hopefully we'll be answering some of your questions, or all of them within within the future document, and as the work as we go along. And I'll come on to how you'll be involved a little later.
I totally agree with that, Gary.
Okay, so thanks so far. It's fantastic to see these questions coming in, but I'll concentrate on this. So we know that there's a lot of challenges in our city. Obviously, COVID at the moment, we're all facing that as a challenge, and how will our city work in the future, and hopefully this awful disease goes away or is controlled, and we start to return to more normality. How a place is going to react to that and change, and there's also a lot of concern around climate change, and how we are greener in the way we live and work, and also around the diversity in our city as well. We've got a lot of different people that live here, and how do we better reflect the people in our city? So there's some really some challenges there, but also some fantastic opportunities around that. It is a time that we can start to change, and I think we're asking the question about what the main challenges are that you face, and also what opportunities there are as well, because it's not all about problems. It's also about, well, there could be something that's a fantastic idea that you've got about changing somewhere or a way we do things, and we want to hear about that, because that could make all the difference to many people. So what are those opportunities? So perhaps we move on from that one. So what we've done is to set out our future city plan with some clear principles, and those principles are really the sort of themes of the document. So it's about green, it's about nature and biodiversity and clean air, and a much greener way of living, sustainable energy, and so on. It's also about being equitable. How do we make sure that everybody has equal access, whether that be through people with different backgrounds, and how do they all have equal access to the right education and skills and the jobs, and also access to our city centre and central areas as well, and public transport. So those people with that have different needs, and they all need to be reflected in our city and how we shape that. So how do we make it equal for everybody? Whether you're walking or whether you've got a bike or whether you're in a wheelchair, how do we make sure that places are accessible for everybody? And also that's part of our city being livable. If you've got if you need access to the doctor's surgeries and the dentist and a local shop that's supplying good food and services, we need to make sure that the neighbourhoods have access to all of those things. And also what's distinctive about our city that makes people want to come to Birmingham, makes people want to invest here, that bring the jobs and bring the investment that our city needs to thrive. We can't be a closed shop. We have to be open to the world and to invite and to get people to come here. And what's distinctive about Birmingham? And I think there's a lot of distinctive things about our city that's really positive and really good. How do we make the most of those, whether that be the sort of the connections with Tolkien in the past, or the heavy metal music scene, or the whole wealth of different things that make Birmingham the city it is today, and all our communities help to make that. So I don't know if we want to go through these questions, Amanda, or want to catch up on a few points that people are making.
Yeah. So somebody's mentioned about the skyline, that there's an awful lot of high buildings, tower blocks. Why does investment concentrate on the centre and not the surrounding areas? I think you may have already covered that, or if not, you're going to. Agree with the neighbourhood quarters, central quarters, we cannot deal with these in isolation. So what plans does BCC, the council, have for engaging and bringing the different neighbourhoods together? Are a few questions we've had. There's quite a lot of questions though.
Yeah, that's fantastic. There's lots of questions. That's what we really want to see, and I can't even pretend that we'll answer all of them today, but we'll certainly try to, and then follow up as well. We'll do that. But very quickly, in terms of the skyline, yeah, we put some images in the document that are quite, they sort of make a big impact, I suppose. There are quite a lot of towers, but we also wanted to show a lot of green space as well. So is that one solution, or is that part of the answer for delivering and providing more homes in the city? If we have some higher buildings and denser places, but we have green space alongside them or nearby, and make more green space in the city, how do we better use our land? That's one possibility, but there are other ideas out there. So that's what we want to hear. It's not what we've put in there is just one idea. And what we've done is to break down the themes that we think are important, and we want your view on this as well. And so we've kind of captured some ideas around each of these themes. So we've come up with this idea of a city of growth for all, and a city of nature, a city of centres, city of connections, heritage, innovation and layers. And I'll explain each of these in the next few slides, and try and answer some of those questions coming up as we go along. So this idea of a city of growth for all, this is about how everybody in our city should be able to benefit from growth. In the past, we've been very focused on the number of houses, the amount of floor space of offices or retail or shops that we build, but this is really trying to understand what people's needs are, and certainly the questions and comments coming in will help us to do that. So affordable homes has already come up. It's really important. How do we make sure that we can deliver those? And there's access to healthcare and jobs and skills. And how do we make sure that development isn't happening on somebody's doorstep and they don't feel the benefit of that? So how do we make that difference? But we've got to also be a competitive city, so we do attract those businesses and those companies and the investment for existing companies in Birmingham to provide those jobs and those opportunities, and also to make sure there's enough space for a mixture of employment opportunities as well. So there's different jobs and industries that can be there for a whole range of skills, and whether that be startup space, about maybe there's some sort of affordable workspace for somebody to start their own company in a place they can afford. There's all sorts of ideas that we want to try to capture in this and to take further. And also we need to tackle climate change. So how can we do things in a greener way, whether that be green energy or greener vehicles or greener processes of production. And that comment also about reusing buildings and how we use buildings in a different way, and more flexibility in that. Okay, next slide, please. So the city of nature. How do we make our city into or to create a network of green spaces? We have some fantastic green spaces, but a lot of those tend to be around suburban areas of Birmingham. For central Birmingham, there are some great green spots, but they're not very well connected. Some of them aren't really big enough for people's needs. So how do we create more green spaces and spaces that are meaningful and useful for people, so that children have access to nature and young people have places to be active, whether that be skateboarding or whatever else or the younger people want to do in the parks, for bikes, for people to walk their dogs and to help people's health and well-being. And there are solutions as well to improve biodiversity and nature within our city. So it could be about drainage. So the water that comes off our buildings and our streets can be actually dealt with in a different way to create green habitats for insects and wildlife. So there are different ways of doing some of the things we've always done for many years. So how can we make sure that our environments do attract and support nature? And for example, using our canals, the Canal and River Trust over the last few years, they look after the canals, and they've been including green swathes within the canal area. So just a strip a couple of feet wide along a few stretches of canal have managed to bring in all sorts of wildlife to spots that perhaps were completely devoid of nature before. So how do we promote more of that within our built environment and our natural environment? Is there potential? And you've seen on some of the images to green buildings themselves. There are buildings that have been erected and put up in other cities and countries that do include green infrastructure on them. So green walls and plants and planters. Could that be one of the solutions? I don't know. Probably can't do it on every building, but if we aim high enough, we could try and get some of that in. And then the city of centres, and this is a really important one, I think, for us, because what we're saying, this isn't about the city centre traditionally as we've known it. This is about Soho Road and Moseley Road and Balsall Heath and Ladypool Road and Dudley Road. We're all including areas and neighbourhoods and quarters that are around the city, sort of city core as well. And this idea of a city of centres, so those neighbourhoods and communities that already exist, and how we make more of those to try and attract that investment and that development that improves those areas, and how we work with those communities and those to develop the right type of homes and with access to local services and public transport, and makes those centres just as important as New Street or High Street or Victoria Square. How do those areas also get promoted as places to visit, for people to visit the restaurants and the shops, and also for the local communities that use those too? So this idea around the city of centres is something that we think is very different and to the very central looking plans of the past. And we really would love your ideas about those areas. So the city of connections, how do we connect everything up? Is it through bikes, through walking, improving public transport, and those comments about reliability and speed and so on? How can we better use some of our road space to prioritise public transport and make it faster and make it more attractive, so that people do have a choice to move away from private cars, but also making sure that where people do need to use a car for accessibility reasons, for example, that there are still those opportunities there to do so where needed. But it's about giving people more choice, and for a very long time there's been underinvestment in some of those areas. So we you know, it's coming through in the comments as well, we need to improve that a lot. It's not only about physically moving around, and as we're all connected today through the internet from many different places, how do we improve our digital infrastructure? And something that 12 months ago we would never have imagined us doing is to be meeting like this, and it's happened a lot faster than a lot of people expected. So how do we make more of this in the future? And how would this shape the places we live in and work in over the next 20 years? And I keep saying, how do we do this, or how could we do this? This is all about questions at the moment, and your ideas are exactly what we need, and your thoughts. Okay, so those are the sort of different things about connections. Do we create a much clearer cycling route through the city, or walking route? And how do we make trams and trains and buses more family accessible, for example? Okay, and fifth in our 6 city themes, this is one about knowledge and innovation. So this is really about education and skills, and making sure that the companies and the industries that come to the city are those that our communities have the right training for and the right access to those sorts of jobs, and also making sure that the universities and the colleges and the schools all work much better together to make sure that we're make sure that all of our communities have the right skills and opportunities to grow in those areas. Okay. And also that thought about the startup businesses and how they can develop in the city and stay in Birmingham. So it might be somebody that's going to BCU and they live in Handsworth and they want to start up a small computer games company. What opportunities are there to make sure they've got the right links and connections to do that and to grow those opportunities and stay in Birmingham to do that, and they don't have to move to London or somewhere else. They stay in Birmingham. We grow our own and encourage our future generations to be creative and industrious. Okay, and there's just a slide with a selection of different universities and colleges and schools that we've already been talking to or work with, and encourage them to get involved. And finally, it's this our final theme is the city of layers. Now we've called it this because it's really about our layers of history and heritage and culture of the city, our traditions, and how we celebrate those, and we're proud of those as well in our city. We've got some fantastic history, and also we have some great things that are happening now and today, and how do we well, in normal times, how do we best make the most of that creativity and diversity we have in our city? So we want to make sure that development protects that and enhances that. So and also, how do we make the most of the Commonwealth Games next year and the legacy from that, the sporting and the health benefits that event will promote, and also how do we make sure that Birmingham is on the world map as well, to make sure that the visitors that come here, hopefully things will be more normal by then and we will get people coming to our city perhaps for the first time ever. How do we make sure that they get the best most out of it and go back and tell their friends and neighbours and their colleagues about the fantastic time they had in Birmingham and what a great place it is, and we all know it is for all the things that go on here. But also, how do we make sure that those events and activities that do happen in the city are open for everybody to use? Not everybody can afford a £10 crazy golf ticket. So how do we make sure that there are those things almost for free, or a good range of activities within the city as well? And how do we better protect some of our heritage and history, our listed buildings, and our and so on? Okay, so I've talked quite a lot now, so I'll give it a break for a moment to let me have a glass of water, and hand back over
Gary,
to Tim and Amanda to.
Yeah. No, thank you. Thanks, Gary.
Shall I just come in and give you a breather for a moment, Gary?
Thank you.
So there's quite a lot of comments about recognising people with disabilities, sight loss and physical disabilities, making sure that they're included in any planning. Green spaces, there's some comments about green spaces that, you know, great, but some people, older people don't feel safe to travel around or be in green spaces. There's a couple of questions about affordable homes. You know, what does the council consider to be an affordable home? And also a couple of questions about, you know, what will the city centre look like? Because obviously you've got the green air zone coming in shortly. Obviously the factor of the pandemic, people are working from home. So, you know, what's gonna be put in place to make the city centre, over and above what you've already talked about, make people want to go back and be able to be there, and affordability.
Yeah.
It's quite a lot of questions.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, firstly, thank you for all these comments, and myself and officers will certainly respond to these properly after this event. But yeah, I think really good points. I mean, I guess the big thing is the pandemic has really accelerated maybe some of the trends that were going on in central areas, city centres like Birmingham. But it is about, I think, the quality of place. We need to have all central areas as real destinations, and we are, you know, by nature social animals, so we do want to interact. So it's very much about a destination, whether that's for work, for living, for leisure, for tourism, for you know, for just being able to do all these things that maybe we've took for granted. So I think we need to ensure that there's a real mix of uses, create a vibrant and healthy activity. And I think that will also help in terms of some of the open spaces that we will see, from the plans around Smithfield Town Park to the improvements along Highgate Park in terms of the green connections through and then through into the central area. But we need to ensure that there's that activity around so people feel safe. And of course the public realm is very important, and the lighting, because people do need to have access to them but to feel safe. In terms of access to all, it's very important, and we've recently had a sort of design code document that looks at the sort of issues for everyone. So you need to be able to have all the appropriate access, whether it's ramps, whether it's signage. So the public realm does look at everyone's needs, and we'll, you know, the planning documents that we do will ensure that we meet those requirements. I don't know if Amanda has that sort of covered most of those sections.
There's a lot of questions. A lot of people being really positive about Birmingham. Anonymous has said city would really benefit from an advertising campaign. All the conversations this person's had with non-Brummies is about how the city is not as bad as you think. It's actually really awesome in that person's opinion, which is fantastic. People
I saw that one. Yeah.
tend to be pleasantly surprised when they come here. We need to be more proactive in selling the city, so people, you know, come, but not just for the events, really. Marketing is being poor. Somebody else has said in the same light, really in the same vein.
I think you're right. I think possibly something about us folk in the West Midlands. We don't brag about what are great places. We have, we probably don't sing enough about it, and I think a sort of campaign to say what Birmingham offers is needed, and I think it's something that hopefully this document will help do, that we are saying this is what it offers in terms of its heritage, its assets. I mean, there is a focus on sort of development, but it's also about protecting the key assets that we have, whether it's the conservation areas, whether it's the listed buildings. So I think it's really a document that is looking to celebrate all those things, but then provide the relevant hooks that enable the appropriate development. And I think the key thing is that we are creating these sustainable neighbourhoods that connect to the central area. So it really, as Gary said, we're opening up that ring road, but we're ensuring that we have the right connections so people can have, you know, the enjoyment of what the centre offers.
Somebody, Tim, has asked a question about the changing places toilets, that they should be open not just 9 till 5. And also, so Stephanie's offered her, she said she's got a really great idea to improve the city community activities. So Stephanie, I think the guys will be getting in touch with you.
Yeah, great.
Yep.
Sorry.
No, I've just been sort of looking through some of the comments and things, and thank you to everybody, because they're brilliant, and you know, and I think you know, we take all of these on board and agree with you, and it's great to see these comments flooding in. So thanks. Shall we move on with the next part? Okay, so in the document we did show some different ideas, and somebody's already mentioned about the potential of tall buildings. It's one approach to development and change, and it's not appropriate everywhere. So what we did do in the document was to show some places that could potentially be developed or in the future for taller buildings, and they have a place, but also it's not right for everywhere. So we're also showing areas around Highgate or around Hockley, for example, which have more traditional 2 or 3 story houses and homes, and as the plan develops over the coming months, we get more ideas about the different areas and the aspirations of the local communities, and the comments that we're getting today is how can we make more room and for those sorts of houses and homes and private gardens and so on. So there's a lot to try and get out of our precious land and in our city. So how do we best use it? And that's where all of these comments today about whether they're about mental health or the use of public transport or not feeling safe in parks and protecting trees and all these fantastic comments coming in. We will take all of these comments on as part of our to help us develop our ideas. But also you can get directly involved as well. So you can comment on the document that we've put online through Be Heard service. So that's a way of writing your comments in if you want to go into more detail or pick up on some of those images and there's some of those themes. You can do that through Be Heard. You can also email us, email the team, me and Tim and Lawrence and others that are on the call, and we've got our email address there. So those emails will come direct to us, and we again will take all those comments on board and help us to develop the themes and ideas, and all of the comments will also be reported to the council in the future. So they'll see how, you know, how people, the comments and views that people are making here today live. And also we're going to hold some online discussions about the different themes. So if you're really interested in nature or about transport, we are holding a number of themed events over the coming weeks that you'll be able to join in to, and you need to register for those the day before, but we can send you details of how to join that. So we want your opinions and your ideas and your thoughts. So we really want you to join us in this, and as you're already doing today, you're already joining us, and we'd like to take that further. So we'd like you to, if you've got networks or you represent a group or organisation, or maybe you're part of an allotment association and you think, oh, actually my friends in the allotments would like to hear about this, then please do share this out to all the people that you know. We are tweeting and putting things on Facebook as well, so social media around this, so please share those. And if you want to have any kind of event yourself, if you've got a group or organisation, then please shout out to us, and we can provide you with a presentation and some material to help you with that. And you can do the presentation yourself. You can probably do better than I have, and do it yourself and come back with your own ideas and thoughts, and send them to us, and really sort of hand it over to you. You take over and you tell us what you do that. We're quite happy for you to do that, and we can attend that if you'd like as well, and listen in, and as well. So you know, quite happy for you to do that and support that. So a final one in there? I can't remember.
Just going to add, Gary.
Sorry?
I was just going to sort of add to that as well.
Oh yeah, thanks, Tim.
Sorry, yeah, I mean, this is very much the start of the conversation, and we really want to hear from you all. So if you'd like to have, you know, separate conversations, please get in touch with us on the email that's provided. But also on the website, there is I think a request form saying if you've got an idea about an event or how you could help us stage one. So we really want to hear from you, because we're conscious that it's quite easy, I guess, as planners to speak to developers and landowners, but it's a community that we really need to, you know, speak with, because hopefully you will be the ones who will get the greatest benefit over the next 20 years as you are in those neighbourhoods, and you will be able to shape it, and you know more about, I think, what the needs are, what the social infrastructure is, and we really want to ensure that this document, the principles, make sure that the planning documents, you know, make sure that they achieve what we want to see happen, like Gary has said, in terms of all the key ideas. So it really is a great time. It's the start of this journey, and we really want to discuss all your great ideas that can help shape the future of Birmingham.
And I mean, I also think that this is the great opportunity to get things right. Not putting drop curbs in the middle of main roads and things like that.
Do you want to take any more questions, guys, or are you?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah. So somebody's asked if, you know, if there's anything that can be learned from London, the way it was developed in terms of city of centres, and how they've turned old disused markets into thriving hotspots. And one other one was a couple of people have mentioned about the digital inclusion, how important it is to include that in any plans.
Yeah, I think the comparison with London is a really good one, actually, because nobody thinks of London as one particular place or centre, and people perhaps refer to central London as being a collection of places. So you might visit London, you might go to Trafalgar Square or Oxford Street or the South Bank or Brick Lane, or a whole number of different places across a very wide area. And I think that's where we're sort of learning from that much bigger city. Obviously London's on a much bigger scale, but about central Birmingham. So it's not all focused on the front door of Marks and Spencer's on High Street or Colmore Row. It's actually about Ladypool Road and Borsall Heath and Moseley Baths and Soho Road, and the fantastic local shops and independent shops and businesses in those neighbourhoods as well, and how we promote those to the rest of the world, so that they think of those places as well. When people think of or talk about Birmingham, it's not all about Selfridges or Victoria Square or Aston Villa or the Blues. So it's about those other things, and other places and locations and destinations, both for the local communities, but also to to make them attractive for investment and development, so they are places that people want to build in and develop. So yeah, that's a very good comparison actually, and sort of the way in which we're thinking beyond the ring road and thinking about central Birmingham as a much bigger collection of places, neighbourhoods and quarters, and how they all develop and change and evolve over the next 20 years. Some will change faster than others, some will evolve slowly, others perhaps have got different opportunities or different dynamics and will change in a different way. So it's but now is the chance to start shaping that.
There's another question, another comment, Gary. There's obviously a lot of love out there for Birmingham. A big selling point for the city is the theatre and live entertainment. So a couple of other people have mentioned heritage, and I know you touched on it in theatre and live entertainment. It's suffered terribly over the past year. The city needs to support this very big asset of the city and the revenue that it brings in. Yeah,
absolutely, and that actually ties back to a question earlier that I didn't answer about how we bring people back into our cities, and I think it's that culture and whether it be and that social interaction that I think most people are missing at the moment, and people are desperate to get back to seeing a live show, whether it's at the Hippodrome or it's in a back room of a pub, or a drag bar on Her Street, or a live music venue, or some buskers in the city centre, or whatever it is. People enjoy that interaction, and it's those sorts of things that a big city like Birmingham can do offer and does attract people in to see. And the museum and art gallery is free, people can look around there. So how it's about promoting those more, and that's what will bring people into the city. It could be temporary uses, temporary activities around Digbeth, the arts trail around Digbeth, for example. That's something that existed before, but quite a few people didn't necessarily know about it. You can wander around these galleries for free. So there's a lot going on, but how do people know about it? And it's that we really want to push and promote. And one of the themes in the document about layers is about just that. And we're talking to a whole range of people that are involved in the theatres and the cultural scene in the city about how we do that better and how we work to improve that, because it's one of those things that will draw people back in. I don't know who saw the show on Sunday night, the musical show on BBC One, and just that sort of whole live performance thing was, became quite emotional really, because you sort of think, oh, I miss sort of seeing these things, and or football, sports events, that whole range of things where people can get together, religious worship as well, and those sorts of angles. There's a whole range of things that would bring people back in, that I think is what's so special about it. I've said enough. Any more comments?
Someone's anonymous has said the council's work with Nationwide Catering Association has been amazing. I don't know whether you're familiar with this. Revitalising unused open spaces to make cool street food things. More of this, please. Possibly just a comment. I don't know.
Fine. Love to know more about that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. What else have we got here together? Birmingham planners should get together with football clubs, Birmingham City, Aston Villa, canvass their ideas and support the suggestions to offer towards this project as well. There's a lot of positivity about the ideas that you presented, so that's really good. A good record of delivering us in the end. The big property companies win over, so it's just getting equality and fairness into that, written into that strategy as well. Somebody said the city park for Brum was a clear alternative to Smithfield plans. Don't know whether you know anything about that.
We do, yeah. Smithfield's got its own life. It does include the plans as they develop will include an open space for live events and activities. Again, sort of meeting that cultural offer for the city. It'll be bigger than Victoria Square and have different size and facilities to Centenary Square, and also Hippodrome Square that in Southside, which is going ahead soon. So that'll support Chinatown and the Hippodrome in completely remodeling that part of Southside. But also as part of Smithfield, there will be a neighbourhood park that will link into potential to open up the River Ray with a new park. And in this document, also looking at potential for Highgate Park as the one of the city's oldest parks. How can we make more of that? Perhaps expand it or improve it or grow it, and how that then links through to Garrison Park to the north, through perhaps a Sky Park. So perhaps, you know, it's a series of spaces and open green spaces, so more people have it on their doorstep. There's different ideas, different solutions to all of these. So keep them rolling in. Some people have mentioned delivery, and I just want to say that obviously there's some really ideas we've put out there, and what we want to do is to make sure that the ideas are deliverable, and that's a really key part of the work we've got over the next few months, is to look at the those different options, those different ideas, and see how we could deliver those, whether that's through working differently with developers, whether the city council is more proactive or in bringing together sites and land, or whether we have different planning policies that control things in a different way. So we want to look at the whole range of different ways in which we can make this change happen, because it's all very well having a nice plan or a pretty picture, but we want to make sure that it is realistic and we can deliver on these. But you know, things happen gradually, and they don't necessarily happen overnight. So that's why we've got 20-year vision, because some things do take time to come about. But we'll try and pursue it as quickly as we can, really. Oh, we'll see what the time is. It's gone really fast. I better hand over to you. I'll be quiet.
I was just about to say we've just got a couple of minutes left. Amanda, Simon, have you got anything to say before I wrap it up?
No, Lisa, thank you. Other than that, thank you so much for the questions. They're still coming in fast and furious. So we will get back to all those questions that we've not answered. Everyone who's attended today will have a copy of this presentation, and we will publish everything on our website, Get Involved. So thank you very much for all your questions.
I was going to ask you that about the presentation. Simon, have you got anything?
For once, Lisa, I have nothing to say.
Can I just say one thing?
Yeah.
Yes, carry on, Tim.
Sorry, I know I'm conscious of time, but we obviously, if people are really interested, we would like to explore the idea of sort of having a engagement sort of sounding board or group, and if people want to get involved with that, by all means, let Simon or get in touch directly with us, because we really want to try and make it something that, you know, people will really help shape it, and there is that sort of genuine engagement. But you know, thank you for your time.
Yeah. Lise, can I just speak on that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just to finish off what Tim has said, what we came up with the idea is to have a citizen involvement forum, so we can go into more localized team meetings, which means that you could come on using a camera and have a much more in-depth discussion. As the guys have said, this is the beginning. It's certainly not the end, and I think this is a real opportunity. You know, we as a team, the citizen involvement team who put these meetings on, have never really done any co-production with planning before. So this is an incredible opportunity for everybody. So I'd like to thank Gary, Tim, Lawrence and Keris for all their work they put into today. And if you have got any any feedback on today's meeting, please email us. But also, if you want to get involved, email us on the Get Involved email, and we'll be more than happy to pick up any questions and relate them through to the guys. That is me done, Lisa.
Thank you, Simon. I was about to do all the thank yous for everybody concerned. As Simon has just put up, the next forum meeting will be on the 16th of March. Do we have a topic? Simon?
Yeah, we are looking, hopefully we are going to be bringing forward a program that's called, I've forgotten the name now, it's gone out of my head, apologies everybody. Amanda, the Grow Life, what's it called?
Grow Live. Sorry, I can't remember the exact title of it.
Yeah,
There is
we'll
some.
Sorry, everybody. You can see that we are very professional, honestly, but you can also see that we're human. And
needless to say, it will be a good event.
Yeah.
I'd like to thank everybody for their attention this afternoon and submitting the questions. And stay safe and stay warm because it's snowing here. So I'd like to thank everybody and goodbye.